If you want to follow the reading, it's in the Church Bibles on page 1209. It's Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 to 3, and Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. So let us listen to the word of the Lord. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Chapter 12, 1 to 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Amen.
Good morning. So this is a lovely privilege. Let's see where we are in these. To be beginning our series on Hebrews chapter 11, the heroes of the faith. So in this series, we're going to be tracking through Hebrews chapter 11, and we're doing this interesting thing today. We're picking up the first 3 verses of chapter 11, and then we're going to finish off with the first 3 verses of chapter 12. So it's kind of a couple of bookends on the individual examples that we'll get through this sermon series. Is this a bit loud? Getting a bit of echo here. Thanks. So this does sit in a context, okay? So we're at chapter 11, so that means that there's already been 10 chapters that have gone through in the book of Hebrews. And the writer, most people think the writer is Paul or someone very close to Paul, maybe somebody like Luke, possibly taking some of Paul's teachings and squishing them into the letter to the Hebrews. It's a letter written primarily to Jewish believers in Jesus, but of course comes to the whole church. And up to this point in the letter, the author has been showing us the magnificent Son of God. So he's bringing particularly through examples of the Old Testament, he's bringing out who is this person, who is this Son that God has given to us as he picks up all of the pictures that come through, very familiar to Jewish people through the Old Testament. And in particular, he wants to show them that Jesus brings a better covenant than the covenant of Moses, which is quite a difficult thing to bring to a Jewish person. Yeah, because Moses is the dude. And you don't contradict Moses, which Paul never does, and neither does the author here. But he's saying Moses was part of this journey to bring you through to this better covenant, which is Christ. And in fact, Jesus, he becomes both the high priest and the sacrifice of the better covenant. So all this stuff's gone before us. And there's something that the author just keeps coming back to in the book of Hebrews, which is that there's a necessity to respond to what God has done in faith. And if you don't respond to what God's done, it doesn't change what God's done. You can't nullify anything God's done by just saying, oh, I won't have anything to do with that. But the necessity of response if you want to enter into the benefits of what God's done. And so the author keeps coming and saying, no, you must respond. You must enter in because you could wind up dead in the wilderness like the people of Israel. You must enter in, and the entrance is by faith. He feels that his readers are having a problem with the long haul. Okay, and this is what's central to chapter 11, that the readers, his audience is struggling. They're struggling to keep going. So if we back up a little bit to, just to say, this picture, I believe, please if I'm wrong, forgive me, but I believe this is from the entrance to the Bible school in Wales that was founded by Rhys Howes. That's particularly for you, Colin. Yes, faith is substance. If you ever want to have a tormenting book to read Rhys Howes' Intercessor. It's lovely. It's by Norman Grubb. In any case, that was a man who understood faith. So just remember, we're keeping this in mind. We're coming to a letter of some people who are struggling to keep going. And the author is saying, how am I going to speak to these people so that they will be rooted in what they know, but they will endure for the long haul? So if we just flip back to chapter 10, I don't have a Pew Bible here, but I've got my own one, so I don't know the number. But just at the end, the page number, just at the end of chapter 10, we'll start at verse 35. So this is chapter 10, verse 35 of Hebrews. Therefore, do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that when you've done the will of God, you may receive what is promised. For yet in a little while, the coming one will come and will not delay. But my righteous one shall live by faith, or my righteous one by his faith shall live. And if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who shrink back, encouragement, and are destroyed, but of those who have faith and preserve their souls. So then we begin at, there's the first thing that the author is wanting to say is that this is not faith of a moment. Okay, I believed that, and that. So it's the kind of faith that says, I get out my card and I've got my bill at Tesco and I put my card on the machine and I believe I've got money in it, and then it's done. It's not that kind of faith. It's an enduring posture of faith that we are to stand in. It's something that is our way of life, and it continues through our whole life. And when the Bible talks about faith, faith is always relational. So this is not very revelatory, but I just want to say that in the original language of the New Testament, the word for faith, it's the noun for the verb to trust. Okay, so it's kind of the same in English, but we don't have the same words. And so believe, faith, and trust, they're all the same root word in the original language. So we've developed this kind of way of thinking that says faith is some sort of independent force that I can have, and if I have that, I can do things like Luke Skywalker, and I can make rocks lift up and stuff like that. That's not biblical faith. Faith in the Bible is trust in a person. It's a relationship. So it's the foundation of your relationship. Now, we all understand relational trust very, very well. You know, you've got those friends and they're a bit dodgy, and you're just not sure when they say the thing they say that they're actually going to do it. And you've got those other friends that when they say it, it's rock solid. You have faith in that person. If he says it, he'll do it. If he says it, he might just be being nice. I don't know. So, faith in the Bible is trust in a person. I want to just lay that as a foundation for all of chapter 11. And critically, faith is expressed through actions, and they're actions that rely on the faithfulness of the person. Okay, so this is all, sorry if this sounds terribly obvious, but faith is acting on the basis of a person you know to be faithful. So it's like a continual walking out of this relational trust that you have in this person. So let's move to chapter 11. Oh, hang on, too late. Well, this is by faith, all right, chapter 11. And at the beginning of chapter 11, we are told that faith is the assurance. Actually, that rock you saw there, substance. Substance is the same word. It's the assurance or the substance of things that are hoped for. It is the conviction of things that are not seen. So when you have conviction about something, that means you're sure about it. When you have assurance, when something is a substance to you, you're sure of it. So it is a settled matter in your heart. So faith is talking about, faith brings these matters that we might hope for and things that we can't see, and brings them to the reality of our experience. And interestingly enough, the author then goes on in verse 3 to start say, by faith we understand the universe was created by the word of God, so what is seen was made out of what was not seen. Which is odd, because he's saying that faith is the substance of, or the assurance of things not seen, and then he says, here's something seen that we can all see. Our first evidence of faith is that we believe this seen thing came from something that was not seen. So it's kind of an interesting journey. Then the next step is going to be go on to this list of what we're calling heroes of the faith. So, again, to be clear, this is a faith in a person. So suppose I were to come to you and I was to offer you a job. I can't, sadly, if you need a job, but I came to you and I proposed, here's a job that you could do in my company. And it is the perfect job for you. It's the thing you've always loved and longed to do. And the conditions are very, very favorable. And it's just everything you've ever wanted. What are you going to do with that offer? What's the first thing you're going to start doing? You can shout out answers if you want to. I don't know whether we're allowed to be unruly in the morning service. Think about it. On the basis of what I've told you, you're going to quit your current job and then come and turn up at my place and say, okay, I'm here to work. Well, you're going to want to know about me, aren't you? You're going to want to understand, okay, is this guy for real? Is he actually making any profit? Is this offer going to stand? Am I going to turn up there and there's no job, or the job disappears in 3 months? You will be investigating me. I'll tell you what you won't be doing. You won't be sitting at home trying hard to believe that it's true. It's just such an outrageously good offer. I just can't believe it, so I need to try harder. You're just not going to do that, are you? There's nothing we do that with. I don't trust that person. I need to try harder to trust them. No, I need to know that person better. I need to know more about them. I need to know them. I'm not sure if I've missed a slide here or not. Okay. Anyway, to put it another way, this is basing your actions or your activity on the clear promises of the God whom you've come to know and trust. That's what we're talking about when we look at Hebrews chapter 11. It is faith to be lived by. And it is doing that. It's trusting in his promises and acting on them that brings the things we cannot see into the reality of our experience. That's where the substance comes into our life. If you don't take the action, you never get the substance. So this is not intellectual assent. This is faith you stand on, faith you walk on. And it's lovely because it says in chapter 11 and then in chapter 12 that these people were commended for their faith. I promise you the world will not commend you for this faith. People will think you're pretty silly because you're believing in something you cannot see. You're actually acting on it. I'm going to step out and trust this thing that you can't hear, you can't see, you don't even think is real. And you will see the evidence of my life that this one is faithful to me. So throughout chapter 11, we have this privilege of these stories of faith. Now, the wonder of a story or a testimony is that in a story, you're not just filtering data, okay? You're not trying to just weigh things up and see whether they're true. In a story, you get to stand in the shoes of another person, and you kind of vicariously experience what they experienced. You stand in Moses' shoes in front of the Red Sea, and you are thinking, now, what do I do? Because that's how the testimony goes. It draws you there, and you understand, if this depends on me, I'm finished. And so is all the people of Israel. And you begin to get a glimpse of how Moses saw God. And when God says to Moses, why are you looking at me? Go forward. And then you find yourself lifting your staff in the sea parting and walking through, and you think, this is not me, Moses, doing this. This is the mighty God. So this will take imagination. So these coming weeks, you need to come with your imagination prepped, yeah? So you can hear these stories and stand in them and learn not so much what the people did, but how they knew God. Because a little bit about myself, I loved reading biographies of great Christian heroes of faith when I was a kid. I still actually love them, but for a different reason now. When I was a kid, I loved them because when you're young, you think you can be a superhero. And you feel like if I just get everything just right, I will be a great person like this person, whatever your latest one you're reading is. And when you're old, you feel inferior to these people, and you feel like the ship has sailed. I'll never be Hudson Taylor. I'll never be Jackie Pollinger. I'll never be these people. I'm just never going to do it. It's past. And so we despair sometimes. The mistake is that I was looking at the person. And that will be your mistake if in these coming weeks you look at these people and you think, I must be like Moses, I must be like whatever, whoever. I must try harder to believe like they believed. That's not what this passage is doing. It is drawing us to know God the way they knew God. Come to know his faithfulness. Come to trust his faithfulness. And then we'll find that it's not that difficult to do what he calls us to do, to live in faith. So on to chapter 12. This is the other end of the bookend. So we've gone from there, all the books in the middle, all the heroes of faith. We're now here. Let's see. Oh, I did miss one. There we go. Based on clear promises. Oh, another one. No. Sorry, I didn't do my notes right. Oh, my goodness. There we go. That's all the stuff I just said. So in chapter 12, the author brings it all together. So now we have to imagine that we started at chapter 11. We heard what we just heard, all that wise things I just had there, all the brilliant stuff. And then we've gone through and we've heard story after story after story of people who trusted God. And there's a few different things the author's trying to bring out, which will come out in these coming weeks. But they found God to be faithful. And now we come to the other end. And the chapter 12 sets us up with this picture of a race. And in this race, picture a marathon or something like that, where you've got all the cheering fans either side of the road. As you run up to the end, now I've never run a marathon or anything where anybody cheered for me towards the end of anything. But some people here have. Maybe there was even people cheering for you. And there's the cacophony, but if you look at the runners, it's like what Joe had on his slide. They are not watching for the fans. If you're a bit of a YouTuber or a TikTok fan or whatever, you can find all these videos of people who looked away at the last minute saying, I'm going to win, and then someone else overtakes them. They're looking at the end. They're looking at the finish line. So the road is lined with those who have testified, who've already testified of the faithfulness of God. And they cheer us on by their testimony. They are shouting their testimony to us. All the Old Testament saints. In fact, people that we know. I have in my life several people who line that road as well, who've already passed on. They finished their race, they ran well. They're people who, to me, are heroes of faith. They're in the cloud. They're cheering us on by the faithfulness of God. Keep running. Don't give up. But we're not looking at them. Okay? We're looking at the finish line. And at the finish line is the same one who started us off at the beginning, Jesus himself. So there we find the promise. And Hebrews 11 will tell us that a lot of these people all died in faith, not having received what they were promised. Because they were waiting for a promise which they couldn't be completed without us. But in Christ, we receive the promise because he is the promise. He is our finish line. He is where we're going. He's where we came from. The one who is the faithful one is also the basis of our promises. He is our sacrifice and our priest. He is the one who brings us into this place where what we cannot see is our daily experience. So the voices keep calling us to look forward. We're not looking at saints anymore. Yeah, we're not looking at saints or prophets or heroes or anything like that. We're looking at Jesus, and their voice just helps us to see him more. Jesus is the great witness. He is the promise. In Philippians 3, 7 and 8, Paul says that he's pressing forward to lay hold of the prize. What's the prize? It's to know Christ. It's to know Christ. It is when we see the life of Jesus laid down that we come to know the character and the love of God. You want to see God's credentials, you go to the cross. You see someone who would give everything for you. Let me flip to Romans 8:32 quickly, where I've got it here. Paul says, "He, God, who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him, with Jesus, graciously give us all things?" If you have someone who has given the most precious that he has for you, how could you doubt he would give you some minor thing? Okay, he's given us Christ, so with him he will give us all things. So when we see this life, when we see Jesus, our eyes are opened, and faith is the only natural response we can have. How could we not believe the word of one who has proved himself faithful that way? So brothers and sisters, let our hearts dwell on him. This is our only hope. If we look for the approval of men, we will lose heart. If we look for some great transformation in ourselves so we become superheroes, we will give up. If we know him, we will believe. Amen.
Let's just pause for a moment, because Darryl has spoken some words that allow us to come back to bringing Jesus to be the center of everything. If we know him, we will believe, because he is the one who is believable. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith. What our desire is that we might know you more, that we might know you in a deeper way than ever before. And that you would be the one who we look to in every circumstance of life, and place our trust in you, put our whole weight on you, believe in you.